In this video, we are going to talk about functions. A function is a rule that assigns to each input exactly one output. This means you can think of a function like a machine. Your domain values are your x values, and those are the values that you put into the function. So these are your input values. If you put in an x value, the function is a rule that assigns that x value to some output value. The output value is the y value, and it is called the range values. And the range are the y values of a function, which represent the output. If we want to interpret a function, we need to make sure we understand what is being conveyed. In interpreting the functions, there's some function notation to be careful about. Right here, we have p of t. P of t means some function p where the input value is t. So if you have an input value of t, that means that you are putting in a value in any places where you would see t within the function. Now, in this case, we don't have exactly a function, but we do have a little bit of information about our function. Right here, we see that p of t is represented by p of 8, and p of 8 equals 54.7. So what that means is, in this case, t is 8, and that would be our input value. That would be our domain value. And the output that we get is 54.7. That would be our output value, our range value. We're told that P of t is the population in thousands of a city t years after January 1st, 2000. Interpret the equation P of 8 equals 54.7. What does 54.7 represent? Well, in this case, the 8 would represent our time. So this is representing 8 years after January 1st, 2000. So P of 8 would look like January 1st of 2008, because our time is 8. Our t is 8. If we had our equation, like if it was t squared plus 7t minus 5, for example, then we would be able to put our t in. It's not. I just made up that equation as an example. But what happens is, whatever the time equation and population equation looks like, we get 54.7 as the output value, which means after 8 years, the population of the city is 54.7, which, if we convert it to thousands, would be 54,700. Here we have, what does P of 5.5 represent? Well, remember, it was P of t before. So t represents our time, and more specifically, our time after January 1st. So that means that P of 5.5, well, notice the t is in the parenthesis, the 5.5 is in the parenthesis. So in this case, the 5.5 would represent our time. So this means 5.5 years after January 1st. Well, 5.5 years after January 1st. Well, 0.5 is half a year, so that's 6 months. So that would take us to July. And 5 years would take us to 2005. So we're looking at July of 2005 when we're looking at 5.5 years. So July 1st, 2005 would represent 5.5 years.